Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me know if the sound sounds a little off. I'm running it actually with a lavalier. Let me go ahead and switch then. Actually, Janelle or Larry, you guys getting any echo? Cindy, that might just be on your side. Is anybody else getting echo? Yeah, Cindy, looks like with the chat, that's just on your side for some reason. Might be because you have the webinar open twice, possibly. So I'll go ahead and stay on this audio for this one. So anyhow, morning, everyone. My name's Nate Smith. In case you don't know me, you've probably seen me around, especially if you're at annual conference, when we have another annual conference in person. Normally I'm hanging out at the back table over at Hershey, or when we were at Messiah. Also on this call, Larry McLeaf is also here, and Janelle Walker is also here. Larry's waving, and so is Janelle, but I've myself spotlighted on this, so you can't see them, but I could for that one. So anyhow, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about live streaming, just some general information about it. We're going to talk a little bit about also how to do some meetings as well, some options with that. We've been getting a lot of calls about that lately. And Janelle's also going to talk about some of the copyright stuff that we've been seeing lately. If you have any questions, please ask away. If there's something that I can answer while it's going on, I'll answer. Just use, preferably to use the Q&A section to ask the question. I'll see that a little faster than chat. But chat is also up, and Larry and Janelle are going to help me monitor that stuff and try and answer things as we go on. With that, I'll go ahead and start. So we were originally going to run this up at the conference office in one of the conference rooms, just because of the amount of equipment I was going to set up and sort of show some of this stuff with how we use it. And this is mainly how we run a lot of the annual conference stuff or some of the other events that we have to run. We don't do this week to week like a lot of you guys do with your churches. So I have to say I'm not an expert at this, but I mean, every year it seems like I have to research this, find out what equipment to use. And I mean, we use it mainly for annual conference, and then that's about it. So sometimes we have some little events throughout the year and things, like we had the DS installations, and a lot of those were actually run with the equipment at the church, which was good. But anyhow, I'll go through this stuff. I'll give you a quick shot of this is what my basement looks like because I had to bring all this stuff home. We're actually not running this up at the conference office because the conference has some construction going on right now. So I couldn't use one of the conference rooms. I didn't want to use the server room just because of all the background noise and things that you would hear with that. So this is basically what my work area looks like right now. It's a big mess. I have multiple computers in front of me. I'm going to talk about this device here. This is the Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro. This thing works great, and honestly, with a lot of churches and what they're doing, this may simplify a lot of stuff that churches need to do. Over here, I have our iMac from the office. We use this for ProPresenter, and I'll show you this a little bit later on as well with how ProPresenter works and what you can use it for. And then, of course, my laptop here. Also, I'm running this. Let me slide this window out of the way. You can see the main camera I'm using for this is this one up here. This is a Panasonic GH4. Using that feed in for the main camera. The camera that's actually showing this angle right now, it's a Mevo camera. And I'm going to talk about that camera here in a little bit. So let me go ahead and switch back. All right. So I'm a little off-centered because the camera's pointing this way, but my laptop's over on the side. So I'm not an expert with lighting or audio or any of that stuff. I'm a tech person, so I know how to make the stuff work, and we're going to use it this way. And sorry, someone just said about the sunny day out here. Sun's shining right in my back door, so hopefully the light is okay here as well. So some of the services we're going to talk about today, YouTube, Facebook, Zoom. We're going to go over a little bit of Google Meet as well. We're going to talk a little bit about phone streaming instead of, if you need to do strictly phone streaming instead of like a video stream or a live video stream. And we're going to mention a couple of things about even like, I have some texting service links as well for that. So some things to keep in mind when you're doing live streaming. The biggest thing, and this is what we always hear about, is cost. Almost always, we always hear about how can I do this for as little as possible. We're going to show you a couple ways of how you can do this for free. There are services that work for that, but depending on what you want to do, different hardware is definitely it could be a better choice. And of course, the sky's the limit on how much you want to spend for this stuff. I mean, there are some churches that have spent tens of thousands of dollars to get their live streaming set up correctly. And I mean, it definitely shows whenever you're watching those type of services, but it also involves a lot of people behind the scenes to run them and get them working every week as well. Next thing is, what do you want to stream? Do you want to stream sermons, music, meetings? You really need to think about that kind of thing. This is where some of the copyright stuff is going to come into play as well. We've been seeing issues with copyright with music, of course, and typically it's not so much with the live streaming services. Those normally get passed through without a problem. It's when pre-recorded things are uploaded to Facebook or YouTube. Those things tend to get caught faster. Facebook lately has been a lot more strict on music copyright than YouTube has been. YouTube's pretty nice because even if there is a copyright, there's different types of copyright. And if it's a copyright, basically a copyright flag type of thing, a lot of times that video can still be posted. It just can't be monetized. And for a lot of churches, that's not a problem because then the video can still be up without a problem. Sometimes in certain areas, that video or the music might have to be muted or even removed to be able to post that video. But for the most part, YouTube we have good luck with. So the biggest thing that we always hear about is internet speed. That's the third thing to keep in mind. We know there are certain areas in the Susquehanna Conference that some get great internet speed, like around Harrisburg, there's Comcast, there's Verizon Fios. So around certain areas, they have great choices and speed is not a problem at all. Because typically to live stream, you need an upload speed. It's something normally around 4 or 5 meg is what we suggest. But faster is definitely better for any streaming. If your internet's not fast enough, which we run into a lot, and I mean throughout the conference, DSL is used heavily in certain areas, and DSL just normally is not fast enough to stream. Sometimes you can use cellular to stream, doing a hotspot from a cell phone, but that really depends on how fast of cellular internet service you have, and a lot of times that can't quite keep up either. Now, if you're in an area that has a really strong 4G or even 5G access, that's not a problem. It should work from that. But if even your cell issues spotty, that can be an issue for that stuff as well. Normally, we do not recommend using cellular or DSL unless you absolutely have to. And sometimes there are tricks you can do with your encoding to turn the quality down a little lower to help with streaming. There's all kind of different qualities, like there's 480, there's 720 or 1080p. Of course, the higher up you go, the more bandwidth it's going to take and the faster upload you need. If you don't have enough internet speed, what we always suggest is just pre-record the video. Pre-record the video and then upload it. YouTube allows you to schedule the video to go live at a certain time, or some of the services that are out there, you can even upload a video and it sort of acts like the video is live, but plays it that way. There's also a trick that you can do. If you pre-record a video and let's say you have faster internet speed at your house, you could then upload, or you could then almost like play the video live that way from your house through YouTube and Facebook. And so this is a box that we end up using a lot of times for something like that. This is a Blackmagic Media Presenter box. On the back of this box, there you have your audio input, but then you also have HDMI and SDI inputs, and then you have a USB port. It's hard to do this backwards like this. A USB port on the back of this. What this box does is it allows you to plug in a camera or basically any device that is HDMI or SDI, and then the USB port on this, you take that into a computer and it simulates a webcam. So it makes it very easy then that if you record the video, even if you record it from a camcorder or anything, and you just want to play that back out, or from a laptop or anything through this, it's very easy then to trick the device into thinking it's a webcam and playing it that way. This works for things like Zoom and other Google Meet or anything that a webcam would work with. And if I say any terms or anything that you're not sure about, let me know. SDI is something that a lot of people don't know about. SDI it's another type of a video and audio connection that cameras use. A lot of the higher end type cameras use them. SDI looks like, slide my window out of the way here so I can see. SDI looks like a coax cord, like that, if you can see that. It goes on and then turns and then locks in. If you have long cable runs, SDIs are much better to use than HDMI cords because SDIs can reach, like typically up annual conference and things, we run ones that are 150-foot long cords and things, and we have no problems with those type of cords. Someone asked about how much the cost of this device is. This device is about $500, but depending on what you use it for, it can be very much worth it. And I'm also going to show another device, the Blackmagic ATM Mini Pro. It's actually just a little bit more than that, but it does some additional things that the web presenter does not do. That I would actually recommend this thing now. So. All right, so let me find where I was at here. All right, so the next thing to keep in mind, is there anyone in the church that can lead this type of project? I say that because if a pastor is trying to do all of the live streaming and do the sermon, it tends to be, from what we have seen over time, is that when a problem happens, it happens at the worst time possible, right when the service is about to start or halfway through the service. And if the pastor is trying to run all this stuff as well, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if you're in the middle of a sermon, I probably won't want to be trying to take care of computer issues as well at that time. So it is a good idea, but I know some churches don't have that luxury of having a person help take care of these things and run this kind of thing. But if you have someone, it definitely does help with that kind of thing. Next thing is set your expectation and goals. Every church has a different setup or need. And that we see that every single time that we talk to someone or we go into a church. Every church is set up differently. Some churches have projectors and screens, some have TVs, some don't have anything. And it really makes a big difference for that kinds of stuff and deciding how you want to run your setup. The next thing is don't just run out and buy equipment. We have seen that a lot as well. And me personally, I firsthand do that mistake a lot. I run out, get stuff that I think I'm going to use and do with this kind of stuff, and then realize it's not quite the right solution that I needed for something personally I'm running. And research just really helps with that, just to make sure what you're going to do. And even finding other churches that may do the same type of setup that you're looking at, and just comparing notes with some of that kinds of stuff. And it's also very easy to purchase things that you think are going to work, spend too much money on it, and it be overkill for what you need to set up. Also, if you're new to streaming and have a small church, using some of the free options are a great way to test before investing money on a better solution for down the road. So next thing I'm going to talk about is just choosing a camera for your live stream. There's plenty of different ones. Here, I'll switch over on my laptop. So the first one, if I can find my mouse here. So first one is just a webcam. So as you can see, this is my webcam on my laptop. Webcam is probably one of the simplest ways, because you can just run the software, have it up, have a webcam, and have the audio coming in that way as well. And it's one of the easiest ways. But there are webcams, there are different quality webcams that you can get. Some are a little higher than other ones. I know they even make 4K webcams now. But Again, webcam is probably one of the simplest options you can do. Let me go ahead and switch back here. And webcams are definitely not the best choice if you're trying to stream from a sanctuary, of course. Next one, cell phone. Cell phone is, I mean, if I hold mine up here, you can see it's an easy way just to have mounted. And I do know churches that do this type of setup. They have a tiny little tripod arm up in front. They mount a cell phone, turn on basically, turn on Facebook Live or YouTube Live and just run it right from there. While that works, and cell phone cameras are very, very good now. One thing I definitely recommend if you're going to do a cell phone one, take a look at what your audio choices are. There are lots of different audio choices that you can run with a cell phone. So the bad thing is now, though, with a lot of cell phones, they got rid of their headphone jack, which was also a microphone jack. So you have to buy adapters or different things that way. So third one, DSLR or camcorders. DSLR camcorders, they're higher quality cameras that work great for pre-recording, but not, some of them also have HDMI or SDI outputs, so you can use them as live inputs for things as well. Again, these are price ranges for these type of cameras. I mean, you can find these for $100 up to $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. I mean, it really depends what you want to do. Cameras, a lot of cameras you can replace the lenses on the front, like you can get better DSLR cameras, like even the one I'm running now, this GH4, great camera that I use for a lot of things. I use it for still photography, but I mainly use it for video stuff. But on the front, the lenses that I can replace, I mean, I can do all kind of different lenses on it, and very, very happy with it. Another example is, you can see if I switch to another camera that I have plugged in here. Now I just have this pointed over in the side of my basement, but this camera is hooked up as well to this, and you can sort of see this shot. So with DSLR and camcorders, though, if you're live streaming it directly, if you're not pre-recording it and you're live streaming, you want to make sure that whatever you have, you can plug into something. Now, some of these cameras you can plug directly into a computer, but a lot of them you can't, and that's where these devices like the ATM Mini Pro or the Blackmagic Web Presenter, that's where a lot of these type devices will work for that. I'm also going to talk about some other services and stuff that have these same type of adapters that you need for that kinds of stuff. Next is a streaming camera. Streaming cameras are starting to be very popular because they take away a lot of they make it a lot easier to stream online. So the one I want to show you guys today is the Mevo camera. So the Mevo camera, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this. So you can see, now these are just a couple screen grabs I grabbed from their website, so you can see what this looks like. This is a small little camera that has all the software also built into it to be able to stream directly from. So if I go ahead and switch over to the next slide, it also has a microphone in it. Now, when Mevos first came out, I would typically not have suggested them because they didn't make it very easy to pull in outside microphones or additional microphones. I mean, microphones on the device are nice, but if you want something more like if I switch here, more like a shotgun mic, where you can point it to where you want to listen, or even like a lavalier like I'm using here, like those type devices. The first Mevo device did not have that, and you actually had to use your cell phone to pull it in. It was not the easiest way to do it. The newer Mevo device actually has a port on the back. You can plug that right in. Much, much better than what it used to be. So if I switch back here, the other thing with the Mevo device is you control it directly from your cell phone. And this is the nice thing how Mevo does it. And this is sort of how they advertise it as well. Mevo does a wider shot, and as you're using it, you can control it from that. So let's say you have your whole stage in the shot. As you're using it, you can pinch to zoom into someone. You can click on someone. You can set up sort of predetermined areas, and you can so you can produce your actual live stream as it's happening directly from a phone or tablet with this device. And this device is very, very small. I'll hold it down here. I have it on a pad right now, but you can see you can see just how small this device is. The other thing with this device is, and this is newer with this, is but it does work as a webcam as well, which works pretty well. But the webcam features is a little bit more, it's beta right now. So even as I was getting ready, setting all this up and everything, it was still giving me a few issues here or there from the webcam side of things. From the streaming side of things, it's nice because you can stream out to Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, different services directly from the app then. And it works very well for that stuff. The Mevo, I believe, is right around, I think it's right around $500. And for what you get with it, it's a very good solution if you just want a simple single device to set up. Now with the Mevo, it is wireless, but you can also wire it. If I reach over here, there is an actual Ethernet adapter that you can use with it. And again, if you're doing any kind of live streaming, what we always suggest is run wired if you can. Wired internet will work much better than wireless internet. It just seems you'll have much better luck with it. Wireless just can sometimes tend to have issues and go out sometimes. Someone asked about the zoom, it's optical or digital. I believe it's digital. It's not, you lose some quality with that stuff. It is much better to use. I mean, if you want something better digital or optical wise that has a real zoom, then other cameras would handle that better. So, someone asked about hooking up more than one Mevo to your phone at once. That was in the works. And from what I understand, I think they have that available now. We only have a single Mevo camera. So I see in the forum chat, and I'm on the Facebook group with Mevo and stuff, and I see people asking about it. I believe that is available now, and you can have multiple for that type of setup. So, next thing is a PTZ camera, and I'll grab this one. I don't have this one hooked up, but I do have one here so I can show it to you. This is a PTZ camera. PTZ camera can turn and move and spin. If you noticed, if you were at Hershey at annual conference, you probably saw these things that are hanging from the rafter if you noticed them. We actually use 3 of these over there, which is great because we don't have to have manned cameras. Grab the controller. This is what our controller looks like for that. This controller, if I remember right, it can actually control 255 cameras or something like that. We'll never, ever have that many things hooked up to it at one time. But 2 or 3 works great. We have no problems with it that way. You can set pre-set up shots. So like if your pulpit, if your pastor's always in the same spot, you can set up a shot for that. You can set up a shot for the organist, any of that kinds of stuff you can pre-set up, which is great. And we had things set up just like that with annual conference. And I know there are a lot of churches now that are running this exact same camera. It's a, make sure I get the name of this one right. It's a PTZ Optics. I can send out when I'm done, I'll send out a link to a lot of this stuff as well. The PTZ camera, John, if I remember right, I think it was right around $1,500. The controller, I think, is right around $300. I can give you my contact as well. They gave us a good price with the camera. I'll include that in the final email. We've been very happy with these. This one that I have here is a 30x zoom. 2 of the other ones that we run at Hershey, the ones that we keep a little closer, I think they're, Larry, I think they're what, 15 or 20 zoom. There's something around that. This one has a little bit higher of a zoom, so we put this one back a little farther so we can get more of a full stage type shot from this one.
We have 2 20x and 1 30x.
Perfect. Yeah, we've been very happy with the PTZ cameras. There are other PTZ cameras out there as well. Sony makes some that are very, very nice, but price wise, this is one of the cheaper ones on the market, and works fantastic. They do have, I'll show you again real quick. On the back, you can see it has SDI out. It does have HDMI if you're close enough. And then the RS-232 plugs over here, this is how they control. So if you have multiple PTZ cameras, you can actually then loop the controller cord from one to the next. So then everything is all hooked up to the same controller. So works very well, very happy with it. While I'm talking about that as well, if you do have a camera that uses SDI and you need to change it to HDMI for any reason, there are lots of little devices out there. This is just a little Blackmagic micro converter. This flips SDI over to HDMI. So, and they have converters for everything. If you need to change HDMI to SDI, any of that kinds of stuff, they're available. So, and that will come into play when I show you a little bit more about the ATM Mini Pro. That box only has HDMIs on the back, but if you're running cameras from a farther distance to it and you're using SDI cables, then that little box can just flip it to HDMI and then plug in that way. So pricing, yeah, pricing can range. I mean, you can spend $100 on a camera or multiple $1,000s. John, you were saying about SDI better than HDMI. Just the length of cable. If you're running short, like 10, 15 foot cables, HDMI is going to work perfectly fine, even 20 or 25 foot, as long as it's a high quality HDMI cable. But as soon as you get farther than that, HDMI cables will tend to have issues, and SDI, you'll get much better results with longer cords for that. Lighting. Lighting, I'm just going to make a mention. It's not my specialty at all. And I can see Janelle laughing. You guys can't see it. Lighting is not my specialty. So I'd love to show you examples of that kind of stuff. I don't have any. I don't handle any of that stuff. Normally, I just turn the lights on and hope it looks good. That's pretty much my extent of that stuff. Audio. Besides having a good picture, audio is especially important. And again, with audio is a lot like lighting for me. I know enough to be dangerous. I know how to run mixers. I know how to plug all the stuff in and do all that kinds of stuff. But I'm not an expert at it. I know when this one church that I was helping out with, when they had me on the soundboard in the morning, there are guys that are constantly adjusting and fixing and setting levels for the people when they're playing and stuff. I'm not one of them. I set it and I just I walk over to the computer and I worry about that stuff. If someone sounds too loud, I might bump them down slightly, but I don't do a lot of stuff with audio stuff. With audio for right now, how I'm running this one, let's see, move my hair here so you can see it. I'm running a lavalier microphone. It's just a little Shure lav mic. And that I actually have going into the Blackmagic ATM Mini. And the ATM Mini Pro, it has 2 audio inputs in. You can also pull audio in from your cameras as well. And I'll show you that stuff here in just a little bit. But with audio, that brings up another point. A lot of people, when they're mixing audio, and this happens especially, even I'll throw us under the bus for this, even with annual conference. If you're watching the live stream of annual conference, the audio for the musicians may not sound as good as what it does if you're there in the room, because we're only running one single mixer, and that mixer is the guy that's running it is mixing for the actual room and not mixing for the live stream. If you really want to run it the best, and people don't want to hear this type of thing, but it takes 2 audio mixers running, one specifically for the live stream and one for in-house. Now, of course, that means a lot more equipment and a second person running it, but that you will get the best audio that way if you're really looking at doing something like that. So, and again, typically only your larger churches that might have like a full band up on stage playing and that kind of thing, that's normally what you'll get with that, where you might need an actual second mixer if you want to go that route. A lot of churches don't want to spend the time or resources, or just being able to find all the volunteer help to be able to run something like that, because it does take a lot more work to do that. So next thing I'm going to talk about is encoding your stream. So Facebook or YouTube's instant live video with a webcam or even cell phone, that takes care of the stream for you. It's it's the simplest way, because you're just running the software. The software automatically excuse me, automatically takes care of that for you. Streaming cameras and some hardware can also encode the video. So all you need to do is plug in where the stream is being broadcasted to. The Mevo camera, that's one of the things that does that. The ATM Mini Pro, that has streaming capabilities as well. So you can just plug in where you're streaming to, or what service you're using for that. Like if you're using Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, any of those kinds of things and stuff, which makes it nice for that. There are other services as well. Boxcast, I think, is one. Resi is another one. Some of those services, they provide hardware for you. And with that hardware, it has all the settings in already. So basically you just log into whatever account you need, or in the case of maybe Facebook or YouTube, you have to get your streaming key and plug it in that way. Laura, I see about Twitch. Isn't that just gaming? Twitch actually isn't just gaming anymore. Twitch can be used for a lot of different things, but it is mainly gaming. But Twitch is a service that for streaming stuff, that all the same equipment gets plugged right into that as well. So my son bugs me all the time because he wants me to set him up so he can play games on Twitch. So, but that's a whole different thing. So if you don't have a device though that does this kind of thing, then you actually have to have some type of software. Now I know there's a software called Restream. I don't use that one at all, but the most popular one that's out there is OBS. OBS is used very heavily because it's OBS is just open broadcast software. It's freeware. It's open source software and it's free, so anybody can run it, and it works great. But OBS can get a little difficult sometimes if you really dive into the settings and you don't know what you're doing. Now, I do have a sample shot of OBS here. So this is what OBS looks like. And pretty much the first time you open OBS, the best thing to run is the auto configuration wizard. The auto configuration wizard it'll double check your internet speeds. It'll set up some of the defaults to that. And it will run through basically some of the simple things for that. And a lot of times the auto configuration, once you run that, you might be good enough for what you need to do. If not, you may have to set up your audio devices from within OBS. And audio devices, I'll pull this back up. You can see that's the lower middle section there. And you might have to make sure your audio devices are configured correctly. Or add a different one in. As when it's set up and stuff, you see those bars moving if it's picking stuff up, so it's an easy way to see that kind of thing. Third thing you have to do is add sources for video. You can see in the sources section there. Now those are some of the default ones. I just opened OBS and took a quick screenshot of it. But you can add in new video sources that are plugged into your computer as well this way. So if you have different cameras or anything, depending on how they're hooked up. Like if I added in the Blackmagic ATM Mini Pro, I'd click on plus, I'd select it, and then get it added in that way. And the last thing you need to do is test your stream and record settings. OBS streams out, but it can also be used to record locally as well. OBS does a lot of different things, and if you're interested in it, just do a search for it, go to their website. They have lots of good help material on it that works fantastic for a lot of that stuff. So someone asked about, does Mevo require a laptop? Can it be run via laptop? As far as I know of, I think you have to run it from a cell phone or tablet. Now, unless you're using it as a webcam. If you're using it as a webcam, I think once you get it initially set up, then I believe you can just plug it in and run as a webcam. But at that point, I mean, honestly, I think there's better webcams that you can purchase for a lot cheaper than spending. I mean, using Mevo as a webcam for $500 is a little extreme. The Logitech CS 1080p had webcams work fantastic for that stuff. It's what I run here at my house and stuff. And I mean, those webcams are typically about $80 or so if you can find them in stores. So ever since the pandemic, webcams have been very difficult to find. So, all right, so let me go. All right, next one, live stream platforms. There are lots of streaming sites. Of course, you can use YouTube or Facebook for free, but there are paid services that work great as well. So a few of them that I have in the list here, and I'll send out this link to everyone so they have them. Boxcast, live stream by Vimeo. Apparently when I was doing this, we used to use live stream with the conference years ago. With annual conference, we used live stream. We were very happy with them, and we actually had a small little encoder box. And I wish I had this with me so I could show it to you. We still have it up at the office, but it since has been end of life, so we can't use it anymore. But it was a box that only worked for live stream, and it had it had a network plug on the back. It had an HDMI import and a power port, and that's pretty much all it had. It might have had an audio port as well, but we plugged in whatever feed we wanted to go up to live stream, and everything was configured from a web browser, and it just pushed the signal right up into our live stream account. Worked great, but we bought that box. Larry, how many years ago did we have that? Like 10 years it might have been. I mean, we had that box a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, but it's been retired, and I mean, they don't even support it anymore as far as I know of. But Livestream apparently has been purchased by Vimeo. Vimeo they do a great job with live streaming as well with them. Truth Casting, Christian World Media, DaCast, Streaming Church, Sunday Streams, worship channels, or even Resi. Resi, a church that we watch a lot out of Pittsburgh, uses Resi. Resi's a great. I like Resi a lot because it's one of those type of services where they have their own web browser player that can be posted on the website, but then they also can stream it to multiple other sites. So it gets pushed out to YouTube, it gets pushed out to Facebook, all at the exact same time when this church does their streaming. So the church only pushes one feed up, but it goes to multiple places. There are lots of other services that do that as well. If you don't want to pay for that, OBS can do that. But one thing to really keep in mind, that if you're using OBS to push to YouTube and Facebook at the same time, you need to make sure that the computer's powerful enough to do that, because you're pushing two feeds up at the same time, but also that you have a high enough bandwidth with your internet connection to do that. My personal suggestion is, if you're pushing to multiple sites at once, use a service that can handle it. We do not use that with Conference Office. Next time we actually have an annual conference in person, we may look at that feature to do YouTube and Facebook at the same time. But as of right now, I'm not sure when that will be. So it's worth noting that these services may have their own specialized equipment to make live streaming easier for your church as well. Equipment through these providers may cost less than buying it on your own. Some offer free trials to help you compare services. A perfect example is Resi is one of those. Resi has different types of equipment that can be purchased with it. Boxcast, I believe, is another one where you basically purchase. It's sort of that same type of thing, like what I was describing, how we used to do with live stream. Small box that plugs in, and of course, a lot of these services also have higher end equipment as well that can do switching and can accept multiple cameras and all that kinds of stuff. So all the mentioned services are premium options. However, you do have a few free options as well. There are additional free services, but the main two that people use are Facebook Live or YouTube Live. Facebook Live allows you to set up live streaming events, including live streaming your church services. It's free to do so, and if you already have a large Facebook following, it's a great option to use, just because of the fact that whenever you go live, most of the people actually get a notification that the church has started going live. You can also program things ahead of time, so people know, can see it in the event listings and things like that. YouTube Live works just like YouTube, except your videos are broadcast live. YouTube, one thing to keep in mind is your account must be in good standing before you can get started. So if you're planning on using YouTube Live, make sure you plan ahead, get your account all set up, make sure it's working correctly. Don't just try and do it the day of, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get that going. Paid services, of course, you end up having better support. Typically, you can get someone on the phone or even chat with someone from the company and get a little more help with it if you need it. YouTube and Facebook, it's free for a reason. So you're limited with those kind of things, and you just need to make sure that you're ready if you're using the free services, that you know how it works and what to do. So let me take a quick look at what was in chat here. Oh, okay. Cindy mentioned about the EDC office and the grants. So yeah, it's a great way that, but I mean, with the grants, definitely think about what you need to use for it. That will help with it. So one of the other things I want to show you guys, actually, before I do Pro Presenter, let me show you the ATM Mini Pro. So I'll switch over. So this is what it looks like. Now, Blackmagic, you'll hear me say about Blackmagic equipment. Blackmagic equipment, they're relatively newer, I guess, over the last probably 10 years or so. They have released equipment. This equipment used to be very, very expensive. Blackmagic sort of came in, and it's much more reasonable compared to what it used to be. This is one of their newer devices. I think it's only out in the last year and a half or so. There's different types of their ATM Mini. So their ATM Mini, what this device does is it is a switcher. So you can see with the 1, 2, 3, 4, basically you can have 4 inputs. It can be camera inputs, or as what I have 2 cameras, and I have a computer plugged in on this one. So you can see if I switch, this is input 1, input 2, and input 3. Now I don't have a 4th one plugged in right now, but I could have a 4th one plugged in. What this device does is it allows you to switch. You can do transitions. Like I have it just a simple fade transition. I can do cut transitions if I want to. There are plenty of different things you can do for that kind of thing. You can do green screening from this if you want to. It can help you do lower thirds. This ATM Mini can do a lot of different things, but there are different types of ATM Mini. So there's the standard ATM Mini. All that does is it allows you to handle the camera switching. The Mini Pro adds in the ability to stream out to services. So then you can stream directly from it. You can see there's a network port on the back. It's labeled ATM Control, but that is also a network port that you can run with this. Next thing is there's the ATM Mini Pro ISO. The Mini Pro ISO, what it allows is, if you look at the back of the picture here, you'll see there's a USB output. That USB output can actually be plugged in with, let me find it here, these little types of hard drives. So this is a little Samsung T5 hard drive. It's a very, very fast portable hard drive. What this drive can do is it can plug right in, and you can record directly to this hard drive with the ATM Mini Pro. Now, one thing to keep in mind, there's only a single USB output on the back of this. This device can also be used as a webcam. That's how I'm using it with the Zoom webinar right now. So if you are using it if you're using the USB going from the Mini Pro to a computer or laptop, then you lose the ability to plug in a little drive to plug in and record. So just have to think about which way you're going to use it and stuff with that. Evie, you were asking about if it requires a laptop. It does not require a laptop, but with a laptop, you do gain additional features. So everything you can do in it, there is a program that you can run. So let me see if I can, I'll screen share here so you can see, because I have it open on my laptop. So this is what the software looks like. And this basically gives you control. If you've seen any of the other Blackmagic ATM devices, they are the exact same way. Now Blackmagic has other ATMs that have more than 4 inputs. There's devices that have 8 inputs or even more than that if you really want to. And then you have more choices with this. So there's in here, let me slide some of these boxes out of the way here. You can see with the live streaming up here in the corner, I can set which service I want to use. I can specify the server, I can specify the key, I can plug any of that stuff in. To do some of that stuff, to like plug those settings in for the streaming, you do have to at least hook up to a laptop and get those devices or get those settings plugged in. And then once you have them in, it saves it, and then you can just use it that way. You don't always have to have a laptop hooked up to this. Media player, nice thing is with this is I can have some still images loaded up, so I can easily show a graphic if I want to, or even lower thirds or any of that kinds of stuff. These devices do a lot of different things, and I'm not going to go into a lot of the stuff because I'm not set up for that stuff right now. But we do use Blackmagic ATM devices when we're at annual conference. We use a larger one that actually has 8 inputs, just because of the fact that we run multiple 3 different cameras. We're running a laptop feed into it. We have our Pro Presenter running into it. We have an extra video feed for any presenters that we might need to plug in as well. So a lot of that kinds of stuff goes on as well. Also, audio. This is even with the audio input feeds. You can see that I have mic 1 turned on in this, but the other ones I have turned off right now. You can see camera 1 and camera 3, they are picking me up just from their internal microphones, but I don't have those turned on right now. So let me go ahead and stop that screen share. I know we're going through a lot of information and a lot of devices that you may have never heard of or have seen, but we're just running through a lot of this stuff. And I know a lot of the churches, just one example is, we were at a church probably about a year ago or so, and they had a lot of different stuff set up and different things. And sometimes these little devices can actually simplify a lot of that stuff. I know a church that I used to attend, they had a setup exactly like this. They had a lot of different devices plugged in, and a buddy of mine who goes there, he ended up picking up one of the ATM Mini Pros, and it simplified the setup incredibly. Like, it just took out a lot of the additional things that they needed for it, and just made it a lot easier for that. So, all right, so let me, so does anybody have any questions about the Blackmagic ATM? I mean, if you do, we can gladly answer them. I mean, see if I can show you a better shot of how I have mine set up here. Let me switch over to Mevo. I'll hold it above here. I'm not sure why it gives that with the flashing, but you can see I have multiple HDMIs going into the back of it, power, and then USB out of it. It's a very easy device, very small, very portable. Works great for this kinds of stuff. So, all right, so let me go ahead and switch back to the other one. Also with the ATM. Someone asked, John, you were asking how much it is. Depending on which model you go with, the top ATM Mini Pro ISO, I believe, is, I think, $795. It might be, but the other ones, if you just want the one that does switching and also streaming, the Mini Pro, I think it's $695 if I'm not mistaken, and which is a great price for everything that the device can do. So let me go ahead and show you a little more with what else they do. This is just another example of how someone had theirs plugged in. You can see they have a little lav mic plugged in. So this is also, if you have a monitor hooked up to your Blackmagic ATM Mini Pro device, this is how you see it. You have a preview shot, you have a program shot, you can see all 4 of your camera inputs, you have your media player, you have your, sorry, I'm on the wrong device here. There we go. You can see your preview program, your cameras, your media player. If you're on air, if you're doing the recording and your sound. So you get a good shot of everything that's happening at one time, which is very, very useful. Now, the different Blackmagic ATM devices, like if you want to use one that has the eight inputs, it splits it up a little bit more and you see a little bit more information that way. But it's great. It's very easy to use. Excuse me. And it's just plug in a system with HDMI to it, and you can run it this way. So someone was asking about YOLO boxes. Tracy, I'm sorry, I have never heard of YOLO boxes, so I'm not sure. Evie, you're asking about someone who is not tech savvy. Basically, once you get it set up, it should work okay. The problem is always going to be that if a problem happens, it's going to happen. If your service is at 10 a.m., chances are the problem is going to happen at 9:59 a.m. I mean, that's just from personal experience what happens a lot. Like maybe that, like even this morning, as an example, the ProPresenter did not start up right for me for some reason. It was 15 minutes before the webinar started, and I'm trying to figure out why ProPresenter's showing the preview window on the screen wrong than what it should be. And it's just what happens. So I mean, they work well, but the thing to keep in mind is just what to do when a problem happens. So, and I hate to say it, but I mean, if you're paying for a paid service as well, I mean, it's even what happened when the pandemic first started and all the churches tried to flip over to different services. There were issues. Zoom crashed that first Monday that everybody tried to switch to them just because they were overloaded. Free conference call basically crashed because they were overloaded, and just stuff like that just sometimes happens. So next thing I want to show you a little bit is ProPresenter. So I'll go ahead and switch. Let me see. Let me turn off the output. So ProPresenter is a great software to use. We use it with the conference office. We use it with the annual conference and different events that we have. I even use it with Zoom. As you can see, I'm using it here as an input feed coming in. We are still running ProPresenter version 6. Version 7 is the current version that's out. But we haven't had a reason to upgrade ours, and for how we use it, 6 works perfectly fine. Now, maybe next year we'll look at upgrading to version 7 if we need to. But as of right now, what I'm going to show you is just version 6 here. So let me go ahead and flip this over. Give me 1 second. Okay, so if I switch over, this is what ProPresenter looks like. Now, I don't have a lot of stuff in it right now. I just have the slides that I was showing today. That's really all that's listed in this. ProPresenter, though, works fantastic if you have slides that need to be shown, maybe song lyrics, or even videos. It makes it very easy to have everything all plugged in so you can easily switch what you want to do, or blank the screen, or if you want to do lower thirds. I know it can do a lot of those kinds of things. It's great for that. It is specifically set up for a lot of church things, but I mean, it can be used for other stuff too. But I do highly recommend ProPresenter. I do not know what the cost of ProPresenter is. I know it's not a cheap software. I want to say it might be, and Larry, you might remember better than me, might be maybe around $500 or $600, somewhere in that range, I think. If you have a church that needs multiple setups, you can purchase a site license. Site license then works great, so multiple people can also have it on their systems to be able to prep things. Because it's great that, like, we used to be able to prep. My wife did a lot of the kids ministry, and we used to be able to prep a lot of that stuff ahead of time at home, and then easily just take that, push that up in a Dropbox share that then I was able to access at church with the other system with ProPresenter, and just have it ready to go that way. So PowerPoint does work. I know a lot of people still use PowerPoint. It's perfectly fine. Evie, you're asking about if it's available through TechSoup. I'm not sure, but it's worth a shot to check with that. But I do highly recommend ProPresenter for that. It's very, very easy to use with it for everything that it does. So go ahead and switch here. All right, so ProPresenter 7 as well. It does live streaming directly from the software now. I have a buddy that they run their church that way. They had some issues in the beginning with some audio glitches, but I know they got that straightened out and they've been very happy with it. So, but again, it's something I have never tried, so I don't know how the live streaming with ProPresenter works with that. ProPresenter is different than OBS. So, John, you're asking about if it's an upgrade. OBS basically just takes whatever your input is and pushes it up to the streaming service. ProPresenter, you kind of have all your slides and videos and all that kinds of stuff set up. And you can have your inputs with ProPresenter as well and control everything from it. So if if you had a setup where you would have ProPresenter and you want to push something up to streaming with OBS, you'd sort of have two different systems running that. You'd have ProPresenter on one, OBS on another one running, because I wouldn't really recommend running both those on the same system. But if you're running ProPresenter 7, definitely look at the live streaming feature, because you might just be able to take care of that and do both features out of that at one time. So I hope that helps. Hope that answers your question, John. So the final thing I wanted to talk about before Janelle talks about copyright stuff, which she's very excited about, is Zoom versus Google Meet. And I know there are I know there are other services out there as well that do meetings, but these are definitely the two big ones. Zoom works great. I mean, we're using it right now. We're using the webinar side for this, but the Zoom meetings, we use that a lot in addition. But if you're looking to save money, anyone who has a conference email address or even a Gmail address, they have access to Google Meet. Google Meet was, in the beginning, I will admit, it was rushed out from Google, and it did have some issues very early on. But I have to admit, Google caught up to Zoom very quickly with everything. Even if you've ever tried the breakout rooms with Zoom, Google Meet has breakout rooms available now, which I was very surprised to see, because I didn't see any alerts or any news articles saying that they had them in it. Larry and I were testing them just the other day, and they work great. Breakout rooms, if you've never used it, what it does is, let's say you have a Zoom meeting of 50 people, or even more than that or less. You can take and say, for example, we have 50 people and we want to split out into 5 groups of 10 people each. Zoom or Google Meet can do that. And it works great then, that basically it creates almost like a little meeting with the big meeting. So everybody can break out into groups, talk, you can share screens, you can turn on your cameras, any chat, any of that kind of stuff that you normally could in Zoom or Meet. And then when the small meetings are done, everybody can move back into the big meeting. Helps a lot for that kind of thing, so people don't have to exit out of one Zoom and go into a brand new Zoom and then switch back to another one. It keeps that, it's much easier, a much better flow then with the software with that. If you're doing Zoom, this is one thing that Zoom does handle a little better with the breakout rooms. If you're interested in running that and you want to set up your breakout rooms ahead of time, in Zoom, you can do a registration for your meeting. And as people register, the host then can go in and they can divvy everyone up into breakout rooms ahead of time. So if you have an actual event that's happening, that you know how you want to split people up, you can do that ahead of time. While the meeting is going on, though, if you didn't do that ahead of time, while the meeting's going on, you can just automatically split everyone up, or the host can go in and sort of prep that as the meeting's happening and put people in certain groups and different things like that. But works fantastic for that. Both Google Meet and Zoom, they both have free options available. Zoom has a time limit of, I believe, 40 minutes. I know that's what it was a while ago. I see Larry shaking his head. Google Meet used to have a time limit of an hour. I believe they actually got rid of their time limit. I think technically the time limit is 24 hours right now for the free Google Meet stuff. And that may change. Google, that's one thing that I do get irritated with Google. Like one of the things is if you need to record meetings, Zoom has the ability to record meetings. Google Meet also has that ability. And for a while, recording was free within Google Meet, but that has since been removed, and it's only available in enterprise accounts with Google Meet. So that's one spot that Zoom, I would recommend that if you do need to record meetings, use Google Meet for it instead, or sorry, use Zoom to record your meetings instead of Google Meet, unless you have an enterprise account. Conference accounts are not enterprise accounts. Conference accounts are the nonprofit G Suite accounts. So one thing that you do get though from using Google Meet with a conference account compared to a free Gmail account is just like in Zoom meetings where you have a phone number that people can call. Google Meet gives you a phone number as well, but that's only if you're using a G Suite account. Free Gmail accounts, you do not get phone numbers attached with those. People have to use headsets or their mic and speakers with that. So go ahead, scroll through my notes here. One thing as well is both meetings are secure. Zoom added things in like passwords or waiting rooms. Google, if you use Google Calendar a lot, how they make their secure is if you go into Google Meet, or if you go into a calendar event and you tell it to add conferencing in, which is Google Meet for that, you just all you have to do is specify what guests are attending. Those guests will get an email, and that email link allows them to click it and then get into the meeting. Now, if you just send the link out to people, the only difference that happens is the host, and only the host, has to okay those people when they try and join. And what the host sees is they just see a message pop up on their screen. So-and-so is trying to join. Do you want to allow them? And you just have to click yes to admit them in. That's one thing that if you're setting up a meeting for someone else and giving them that information, Zoom might handle that a little bit better than Google Meet. So, but we do use both heavily. One thing is I would have loved to have used breakout rooms for this thing to sort of break off and talk about different things, but Zoom does not, the breakout rooms does not work in webinars yet. Zoom has said that they're hoping to bring that feature into webinars, but right now it's only, breakout rooms are only available in the meetings. If you do not see breakout rooms available to you in your Zoom account, you just have to go into the settings of the account and turn those on. I believe, at least when I looked a few months ago, they were actually turned off by default. So that's everything that I have for here. I'm trying to see if I have any other equipment I wanted to show you guys. I have a lot of stuff laying around here. I think that's about it. Any questions, please ask away. I'm going to hand over to, oh, Amy, you're asking about phone-in services. I'll go over that real quick here, Janelle, before you. So if you need phone-in services, YouTube, Facebook, they do not provide phone-in services for that. If you need to provide a phone-in service for your Sunday morning service, there are definitely different solutions. Zoom can be used for that if you really want to, but you're running your whole service differently if you're using Zoom to just be able to have the phone stuff. Honestly, we don't use any phone stuff, but I've been looking around at it lately. Let me share this screen here. This is one that I found that looks very promising, phonelivestreaming.com. We found some other ones as well. Sermonbyphone.com is another one. Sermon by Phone is one, but Sermon by Phone, you pay per minute. And I could see like a 45-minute church service very easily eating up what your monthly allotment would be. The phone live streaming pricing, if I go in here just so you can see, pricing is much more reasonable, especially if you have a lot of people. Oh, Frank, do you use the phone live streaming? Because it looks very nice and it has a nice like host management where you can upload your service and have easily have it so people can call in and stuff. But yeah, definitely take a look at it if you need something like this. I think this is probably what I'm going to start recommending for people to at least talk with them, have a demo of it. Good. Yeah, Frank said very good. Yeah, that's awesome to hear that someone is using that and has had good luck with it, so we can actually recommend it ourselves as well. So there are other ones out there. The free conference call is another one that you could use. A free conference call has been interesting over the last year. When the pandemic hit, they were slammed. And then they started, I mean, they're still labeled free and they still have free service, but they like to email out constantly asking you to pay what you think it's worth. So again, that's up to you if you want to use them. They have different services as well. They even have stuff like Zoom. They have all the web meeting and that kinds of stuff as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Janelle now. And she can go ahead and talk about that stuff. If you have questions, go ahead, ask away. I'll keep an eye on this stuff as well, and I can try and answer things. And then after Janelle's done, any questions you guys have, we'll take questions and go from there.
Hello?
All right, hold on one sec, Janelle.
All
Let me
right.
just change the spotlight over to you. All right, Janelle, you might have to make yourself a spotlight because I
I
changed
have
the
to make
host over to
myself a
you.
spotlight. There we go. Is this good?
I think so.
All right. Hi. Good morning, everyone. I am Janelle Walker. I am the Director of Communications for the conference. Can you see my screen? Nate and Larry, can you give me a good okay? I'm director for the conference office. I have been here for roughly 3 years, maybe a little bit more. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about copyright. I'm not going to get into the details of everything you need for copyright, but I'm going to mainly focus on what you need for live streaming. I'm just going to give you a disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. This is all independently researched things, things that I've learned from other jobs. I've worked for local churches. I've worked for hospitals. I've worked for city government. I understand copyright a little bit, but I am not an expert, but I can give you a little bit of a gist of what you need. So copyright really is just the exclusive legal right given to originator or an assignee to print, publish, perform, film, or record literary, artistic, or musical material. So, it really is, the rule is if it's not yours, don't just use it. You probably need some sort of permission. Now, I know that there are certain laws for churches, especially you have an exemption to use copyrighted material on Sunday mornings during your typical worship service. That includes religious and secular music. It does not include like a dramatic thing like a play or something like that. And that is very helpful for a lot of churches on a regular Sunday morning. However, no one's having a regular Sunday morning these days anyways. This does not include your live streaming. So if you are recording that service and rebroadcasting it, you still need a separate license to rebroadcast it. You cannot just record your service and put it up and expect it to be okay. Typically, you're going to have some issues. What you really need to do is go ahead and purchase a live streaming license, and that will give you the authorization and permission to retransmit, to broadcast, to record it, have it up on Facebook, and people can watch it over and over again, have it up on YouTube, people will watch it over and over again. That's basically what I'm going to talk with you about today. You have a few options to do that. CCLI, most of you probably have a CCLI license to cover your song lyrics and things like that you do on a typical Sunday morning. There's an add-on that includes a streaming license with a little bit of additional cost. It only works during worship services. Christian Copyright Solutions has something called WorshipCast, which does streaming for live and on-demand services. It does performance copyright music, and that includes worship service and special events, which would be like VBS, a service that's not typically on your Sunday that you would do, maybe an Ash Wednesday, maybe a Good Friday type service. And there's something that's new to me. I don't know a lot about it, but one license also has service licensing, but they also have streaming licensing, and that includes things like your website, YouTube, Facebook, Zoom, Vimeo, Instagram, and other things. All these, the cost is typically by the size of your congregation. So when you go in, you'll kind of get an idea of what the cost will be. Side note, if you do not typically stream music, or if you don't want to stream music and you just want to stream your service, you don't really need a license. It's just really, this is really just music based. I'm going to provide this PowerPoint to Nate, and I don't know if he plans on sending things out, but I can send it out to them later on. So here are the links to all those things that you would need. Here are some just typical do's and don'ts. If you're going to do music, make sure your own worship team is performing it. It's helpful to have your own worship team performing it, because that is really what your license is based off is your performance, not someone else's. Also, always display your CCL license or whatever license number you have from whatever licensing you get, and the song number license. Try to limit the amount of music. I know that Facebook really looks at the amount of music that is in the service versus the amount of talking that's in the service. And that's something in their coding algorithm that determines whether or not they want to take something down. So try to limit that if you can. Maybe not play a full song, but snippets of a song or something like that. That really helps to make sure that things aren't going to be taken down immediately. Also, if you need filler music, I know a lot of times people do countdowns to start the service or just to fill in times of prayer or something. Try to use maybe a stock filler music so it won't be flagged immediately. Don't use YouTube videos in your worship service. If you typically, you have a worship band, but you're giving them the week off and you're like, I'm just going to implant a bunch of worship videos from YouTube in there, it's not going to work. You're going to get flagged immediately and probably is going to be taken down. What I would do if you're going to do that or something like that, I would record a sermon separately and share out those YouTube links onto your Facebook page. That way it's just a share. It's not, you're not using it as your own material. You're giving everyone credit to that material. Also, don't use pre-recorded music from CDs or downloads. I know you've bought them, you've owned them, but it's still not your music. You cannot use that as a way to kind of transition to things, to start up a service or anything like that. Stick to stock mostly. And I don't really have a lot more to tell you. I know that we've had a lot of issues with Facebook taking down videos lately, and Nate talked about that a little bit in the beginning. And Facebook has really been kind of hammering down on that lately. I don't know what it is. I think it's just pandemic and a lot of people trying to do the same thing. I would typically say YouTube is a lot more lenient on it. And if you can use YouTube, they will flag you, but they won't take you down. Facebook will typically just either take the video down or mute those portions of that video, and it becomes difficult for you to deal with. Yeah, but if you have questions, you can always email me. I will always, try to answer your question in a timely manner. I get overwhelmed sometimes, and sometimes it takes me a little bit longer, but I will try to answer your questions and, go ahead with that. I don't know what questions we have in the chat. So old hymns pre-recorded before 1925 are considered public domain. And public domain does typically get past most of the copyright stuff. The issue with that really becomes the recording of it. I think sometimes recordings sound similar and sometimes those get taken down. We're not dealing with, when things get taken down, we're not dealing with actual people who are listening to it and like, oh, they're watching a video. I'm like, oh, well, this person's singing it. If you're dealing with a computer system, it's like, well, this sounds like this sound. and I'm just going to take it down. So I know that I saw something earlier in the chat about someone, there was a scale that was taken down from YouTube or Facebook or whatever. It's not so much that the scale wasn't public domain, it was so much that the scale sounded like something else and the computer system flagged it as something else. YouTube videos, I don't know of a license out there that can really cover YouTube videos. You can get a CVLI license, but that doesn't cover any YouTube videos. That covers really what CVLI has on their system, and that's just basically a video licensing. So that's like if there's a movie clip you want to play, if that's in there, you can play it. But it's not going to cover any YouTube videos, because YouTube videos come daily at the millions probably. So you really can't cover that.
You have to be careful with YouTube, with pre-recorded YouTube videos as well, because YouTube can very easily find that. Like if you use a, I don't know, 2-minute clip from another video, their algorithms can very easily find that 2-minute clip was already used in another YouTube video. And if it's something that is already monetized, there can be some issues with that. A lot of times, my personal recommendation is if you're using a YouTube clip, only use it locally. I mean, blank your live stream that's going up, mute it. I would not push that to the live stream, but have that maybe only in-house instead. So.
Can you explain what you mean by stock music? So stock music is basically, it's pre-recorded music. Sometimes it's similar to a song that you would know, Amazing Grace, something like that. Sometimes it's just really just a little tune that you can transition you from point A to point B without it being silent. YouTube has a good stock library. It's all free. You can just go to YouTube/audio, I believe. And that will open up all that kind of stuff for you. It's just downloadable. You can insert it into wherever you need to go, into your pre-recorded service, into your live stream if you need to. But it's really helpful just for just a transition. It's not going to be, it's not going to give you a worship set, but it's going to give you, if you have a time of prayer and you need some quiet music to play, that's going to be perfect for that.
Janelle, I think it's called royalty free. Is that correct?
Yes, royalty free. Yes. Are hymns safer? Hymns are typically safer just because they're public domain, but you need to make sure the arrangement of the hymns can be copyrighted as well. I know that some hymnals have certain arrangements, and those hymns are copyrighted. But the United Methodist hymnal, I believe, is public domain, and I know that Discipleship Ministries has opened that up until this pandemic is over, to be able to use for free. So you will be able to use the hymn from the United Methodist hymnal for free. So CDs really you can't use a CD. You can't use a pre-recording of anyone from anything. So say you bought a bunch of CDs and you just want to play them before service. On a typical Sunday morning where it's just you and your congregation, that's fine because you have that exemption. But as a live streaming thing, it's that broadcast, that retransmission of it, that is going to get you flagged and taken down. I'm not quite sure on the intricacies of the hymnal and as well as the liturgies. My understanding is that because of the pandemic, the discipleship ministries and Abington Press and all of them have let you be able to use those things as public domain throughout this time, um, just because they know it's tough to get things done at this time. I don't know what that's going to go after this. My understanding is that if a hymn is written before 1925, it's public domain. However, the new arrangements of hymns may be copyrighted. So that's something I would have to look into for you guys. I'm not quite sure about Faith We Sing either. And that's not something I'm typically familiar with. Yeah, Evie, I agree with you. I know that, the publishing house, and they publish hymns that are older, but a new arrangement, like I said, um, your example, Evie's example in the question and answer was In Christ Alone, may not be public domain for streaming because there are newer arrangements of it, and you may be using a new arrangement, not the original. I would say stay away from pre-recorded accompaniments. I think that one license and even the CCLI Plus streaming may have accompaniments in it, but I'm not 100% sure. I know I saw something about it, but I haven't. We don't have CCLI Plus, so I don't really have access to see what it looks like to me. So I'm going to hand it back to Nate, and we're going to answer any questions that you may have. Okay.
Thanks, Joe. All right, so let me go ahead. Do you want to spotlight me or switch back to host?
Just a second.
Or just take your spotlight off. That's fine.
I did take my spotlight off.
Oh, maybe I have a pin on. All right. Anyhow, so thank you. Yeah, as you can see, we're not the ones who normally do these webinar things. We normally make sure they work, and that's about the extent of what we do. If you guys have any other questions, let us know. I will work on getting all the stuff that we talked about today put together. I'll get Janelle's stuff. William, you're asking about Faith Life Proclaim software. Sorry, but I do not know about that software.
That's what my church uses, Faith Life Proclaim, and it's very good. It's I would say it's a step down from ProPresenter. ProPresenter is the top of the mountain worship software right now, but Faith Life Proclaim is very good. It's partially, I guess, would say cloud-based, where multiple people can open up Proclaim. So if you have your worship director editing the song lyrics or the schedule, someone else like a church secretary could add in slides and stuff like that, scripture verses, and then whatever the worship AV computer is running, that one also can open Proclaim on the same license and use the program that's already been set up for that Sunday service. So, but Proclaim is very, very good. And they do a lot of things very similar to ProPresenter.
Larry, do you know what the price is for Proclaim? Like what?
I don't, but that would be on Faith Life. That'd be on their website.
Okay, we'll make sure to include that link whenever we send this out as well. So, but good, that works. Jack, you were asking about a line diagram showing equipment needed. I see for every church it's different. I mean, I'll put together how we would normally do a small setup, maybe like a 2 camera setup or a single camera and single computer setup with like an ATM Mini Pro. Just a basic one. I mean, you want the absolute basic. Mevo works great for that kind of thing. It's just a simple single camera. Has a microphone built into it, but you can also plug in an external microphone if you want to, or even if you have a mixer board, you can even run a line into that as well if you wanted to. And that's one of the things I didn't mention this earlier, but anytime that we go out anywhere, even if it's not live streaming, even if we're recording, we always try and get a feed coming from the mixer board if we have that ability to. Just because if the church is running their own microphones and all that kind of stuff, the last thing whoever's speaking wants to do is have one microphone on for the church. We're giving them another microphone to wear. I mean, just a single setup is a much better, much easier way, especially if we can get an output from their mixer board coming to whatever equipment we're running. We do run different cameras as well. We have a lot of Sonys that we carry around. They're the larger ones if you ever see us. They're 1080p cameras, or 1080p or 1080i. I forget which one they are. They're not 4K cameras, but they work great for that kinds of stuff. Very easy. They have all the plugs that we need on them because they have HDMI, SDI out. They have 2 XLR inputs, which is great about that stuff. But then we also have other cameras that are even like get on the camera here. I mean, Blackmagic cameras. These are higher end ones. These actually do 4K recordings. They're very nice cameras, and even the Blackmagic cameras, like these type of little drives can plug right into them. Now they have SD card spots or compact flash slots, but the nice thing with a lot of the Blackmagic stuff is, I mean, you can use these little drives, and these drives are so fast and plug in. I mean, you can work directly off of those drives. So it's a very quick turnaround if you need to for recording, plugging that drive into your computer, throwing it into Adobe Premiere or whatever you use, and then editing that software, clipping it, doing whatever you need, and then exporting out what you have from there. So, I mean, depending on what you want, I mean, there are definitely better options. And I mean, the more you pay sometimes can also help with a faster turnaround time for that. Laura, you're asking about FM transmitters for drive-in services. There are definitely, I researched this stuff a little bit early on with the pandemic, and quickly realized that I have no idea what I'm doing with that stuff. There are low power transmitters that you can get which do not require a license, but as soon as you hit a certain level, then you actually have to have a license to be able to run a certain FM transmitter. But I think with a lot of the like church drive-in ones, those you don't need a license for. And I mean, just take a look at B&H Photo or even Amazon, and you can find lots of different ones. And the number one thing for that kind of thing, look around online and read the reviews. A lot of B&H has great reviews for that kinds of stuff. And even if you call them, they have specialists that can help you with that kind and answer those kind of questions as well. Editing software, Sharon. I know myself, I use Adobe Premiere for video editing. There are definitely lots of other ones out there. Blackmagic has DaVinci Resolve. If you have a Mac, iMovie is a great one, very easy to use on Macs. That's one thing I absolutely love on Macs. I don't like a lot of their other stuff, but I do like the iMovie stuff. But it just varies. And Windows, there isn't Windows, I don't really know of a cheap freebie type one that would work for that type of thing. There's definitely some of them out there, but I haven't used any that I've been really happy with. So, Ralph, I see you're asking about the limit on power. Yeah, that's more than what I knew with it. So a buddy of mine runs it, and they've been very happy with they got. They bought a device, I want to say, for only like 150, 200 bucks off Amazon. It worked great for them whenever they were running stuff outside. So, and I see, Tanya, you said about Windows Video Editor. Yeah, that would work well then, if that would work. But yeah, yeah, I'll get an email put together. We'll send this out. I don't know if it'll be later. It might be later today or tomorrow, but we'll send this out to everyone. I'm going to put together a survey as well. So if you have further questions, what we sort of thought we could do with this is we might move into more of a specialized thing. So if we have enough interest in learning more about the actual ATM Mini Pro and how to use it, how to set it up, and that kinds of stuff, we could actually do more of a Zoom meeting, and I could set up more of a detailed session for that, and figure out how to run that. Because the hard part is for these kind of things, I need to make sure that I can not only display what my screen is, but I need camera shots on how to hook it up, how to plug it in, like all that kinds of stuff, which is, of course, a lot easier to do in person. But we can definitely figure out a way to do it on this as well. So, all right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. But if you guys have any questions, Larry and I, you can email us at support@susumc.org. Janelle is jlwalker@susumc.org. And again, we'll send all this out and send you out my notes that I had for this. And hopefully this helped you guys, and can at least help with some of the questions you had. All right, hope you guys have a good day. Take care.